Carter was a Democratic warmonger and created a great dangerous situation, and it was his undoing. Oddly enough, it's his undoing. The very thing he assured me he would never do, they ended up lying like crazy. And this happened. It was also with Iran and the hostage crisis, a total denial of the history of Iran, the U.S. role in creating the Shah, the overthrowing the Hamas. It was all a tissue of lies, like so much of American foreign policy, which Carter personally knew. That much I know. He's a smart guy. And I should say, by the way, way after the Playboy interview, I ran into Carter because he wrote that book questioning it, and we had an exchange of letters. And I actually had a nice discussion with him at UCLA and other places where he showed up. And so I think at the end it was quite friendly. But he was very determined as a ex-president to support peace. This is what's the whole question of Carter was raising about his Christian ethics. He abandoned them. He abandoned them in the face of power and rewards and so forth. And when he didn't have power as ex-president, he could return to it.
There's obviously something structural that makes it so that, look at the Obamas. They just hang out with Richard Branson. Look at the Clintons. They do the incredibly corrupt Clinton Foundation. I mean, Carter is, I think what is a fair assessment, right, is that he was a typical president, and he was like a space typical president, but he was an atypical former president. And what's so interesting is that Jimmy Carter is justifiably praised for what he said after being president.
Yeah, but the point is, these individuals only get to that stage of life in a mass media society where money talks. Come on, this idea of democracy becomes absurd when you consider, I'm not going to sing out Elon Musk, but now there's no shame from taking $250 million from somebody. I forget how much the widow of Sheldon Adelson put into
Miriam.
the campaign. Yeah. People put in these huge amounts of money, and they know you're not going to get to be president now. Bernie Sanders tried to do it without selling out. If Bernie Sanders had been willing to sell out, he seems to be constitutionally incapable of it. So I guess he's a lousy politician to represent anyone but Vermont. Maybe they got a lot of
people would say he sold out by endorsing Biden, though.
What? Oh, he sold out. Well, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, sure, on certain issues. Yeah, I'm just saying. But Bob, I want to make sure that we get to the Israel question, because let's take a look at what Jimmy Carter said as a post-president about Israel, which is, I think we can agree, impressive. And then I want you to contrast that with how he ruled as president when it comes to the Middle East. So let's take a look at this clip of Jimmy Carter. First, he's speaking on Piers Morgan, and then he's speaking on Democracy Now!
I think more than any other episode or incident or situation on earth, this is the most directly affecting adversely America in not bringing peace to Israel and justice and peace to the Palestinians. Yes.
You obviously were very successful in bringing peace with Israel and Egypt. Can any deal be done that doesn't involve sitting across a table with Hamas?
I've met several times with Hamas leadership, and I think they are willing to accept Israel to exist peacefully within the 67 borders or some modification of those borders. But the first step has to be to bring Hamas and Fatah together so they can have another honest election. That is a major premise, and I think the 67 borders between the two, with some modifications, will lead to a two-state solution. Netanyahu now, I believe, has decided unequivocally to move to a one-state solution, which every one of his predecessors in the prime ministership have condemned as a disaster for Israel. And I think Israel is now moving toward a disaster for itself, and insisting that all the way from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea has to be Israeli controlled. That is a mistake.
And just to clarify, that was from 2012. That's not from right now, obviously. Okay, now let's hear what he has to say on Democracy Now!
The word apartheid is exactly accurate. This is an area that's occupied by two powers. They're now completely separated. the Palestinians can't even ride on the same roads that the Israelis have created or built in Palestinian territory. The Israelis never see a Palestinian except the Israeli soldiers. The Palestinians never see an Israeli except at a distance, except the Israeli soldiers. So within Palestinian territory, they're absolutely and totally separated, much worse than they were in South Africa, by the way. And the other thing is, the other definition of apartheid is one side dominates the other, and the Israelis completely dominate the life of the Palestinian people. And there are powerful political forces in America that prevents any objective analysis of the problem in the Holy Land. I think it's accurate to say that not a single member of Congress with whom I'm familiar would possibly speak out and call for Israel to withdraw to their legal boundaries or to publicize the plight of the Palestinians, or even to call publicly and repeatedly for good faith peace talks. There hadn't been a day of peace talks now in more than 7 years. So this is a taboo subject, and I would say that if any member of Congress did speak out, as I've just described, they would probably not be back into Congress the next term.
So now I'm going to ask you to comment on that, how it compares to his presidency. But I want to say one other thing, which is that at the very beginning, early on in his presidency, he stunned the lobby that he calls out there by saying at a town hall in Clinton, Massachusetts in 1977, he said, there has to be a homeland provided for the Palestinian refugees, which was kind of shocking to say. It shouldn't be, but it was. So what happened between that and the truth-telling he did as post-president and his actual presidency?
Well, as president, he did do some things where he tried to move the peace process. Obviously, I'm Jewish. I'm very deeply ashamed about the Jewish state of Israel is doing in the name of all Jews. It's
claiming to do in the name of all Jews,
Yiddish word. It's a deep tragedy. Yeah, we're speaking in the name of what? All Jewish people? I lost half of my family. My mother's whole family that was in Lithuania was killed, in the Holocaust. I don't know, but you can use the Holocaust to say now you're going to commit genocide against the Palestinians. Jimmy Carter correctly pointed out long ago. That's a shame. It's a blood libel, actually. It's something Israelis say when you criticize Israel, but it works the other way.